from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, I'm happy to be with you. It's 833-482-5337. I got to make sure. I always forget that number. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. I remember the 833-4-VALDEZ. I just don't remember the actual numbers that correspond. And welcome to the program. Again, Rich Valdez, at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media. And I'm going to start with the tough news. The death toll for Hurricane Helene has topped 130 lives. And I am sorry to even talk about that. That sucks. But that's what's going on. And I can tell you who's not in the South. Vice President, que mala eres. FEMA's doing what they typically do. Not a great job. And you know who's down in the South? El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. Like always, a step ahead of the clowns in the White House. He brought some supplies to the hurricane victims, like water and other supplies that residents that were impacted by the storm needed. Crowd was chanting, "We love you." Former President Trump, this is in the New York Post, by the way, paid a visit to Valdosta, Georgia on Monday, that's today, sending support to those impacted by the deadly path of the hurricane. Again, this is one of those crazy hurricanes that's tearing things up all over the place. But we have a clip of Trump in Valdosta, Georgia, and I want you to hear this.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out, in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through. That is really the American spirit. That's what made America originally great. And that's why today I've come to Valdosta with large semi-trucks, many of them, filled with relief aid and a tanker truck filled up with gasoline. We have a couple of the big tanker trucks filled up with gasoline, which they can't get now. And we'll be working to distribute it throughout the day. And I want to thank again Franklin Graham and everyone at Samaritan's Purse. You people are fantastic, by the way, and people appreciate you very much for the incredible partnering and work that they've done, not only here, but all the time. They always seem to be the first ones at areas that need help.
Again, Trump giving some remarks, standing next to Franklin Graham of Samaritan's Purse. And again, Samaritan's Purse is an excellent ministry. If you're not familiar, I'm sure many of you are, but if you're not, they really do specialize in the stuff that nobody else specializes in. They specialize in this, disaster relief. During COVID, the government was figuring out how to do things. Trump sent hospital ships, Navy hospital ships, and Samaritan's Purse set up a field hospital in Central Park in New York City. This is what they know how to do. This is the ministry that they were called to, and kudos to them. Now, again, Trump repeating that they have a lot of truckloads of different items, from oil to water to all sorts of different equipment that's going to help the people. And this is, I'm just looking at some of the photos. These people were happy to see see President Trump. And I'm guessing, there's a degree of disdain with the fact that the guy running for president gets here before the guy that actually is the president, or the vice president who's also running for president. And it makes you think, what in the world would be going on that's more important than even grandstanding and doing a photo op where you need to be? She showed up super late, right? As we say in New York, a day late and a dollar short at the border just before the end of the week last week. And today, her tweet is that, it's a picture of her holding what looks like an invisible phone. She has an earpiece in her other ear. So she could be leaning on her fist, but it looks like she's holding a phone that isn't there. And Trump made fun of her, saying that, you have to plug the cord into the phone for it to work. And, good on him for being so funny. But he makes a great point. She's sitting on a beautiful Air Force Two plane, writing on papers and drinking a cup of coffee. And when you're a politician, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if anybody's ever told Kamala Harris this. Kamala Harris. I don't think they might have briefed her on this, but I think most people know, right? You don't get the benefit of the doubt. When Trump did things, he didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Nobody said, well, let's give him a chance. Nobody said that for Trump. Nobody. So nobody's going to do that for her either. You don't get a special pass because of whatever reason. You fill in the blank. Saying that, we're thinking of people and we're sending everything we can, or Biden's statement that we've done everything we can do. And then you've got Trump showing up with tankers of gasoline, tankers of semi-trucks filled with water and supplies. I mean, come on. You're getting shown up by the competition here. He doesn't have all the resources of the federal government. They do. I mean, it's just embarrassing. If this alone were anybody's litmus on who am I voting for, Trump wins in a landslide, hands down. Trump going on to say, we're going to be with you as long as you need. You're in our prayers, and we pray to God. And throughout these long weeks the long weeks that lay ahead, you're going to have a lot of work, but the end result is going to be good. We just wish so many people weren't hurt so badly. Again, the death toll over 130 in the southern states that were hit by this hurricane. We love you. We love you. We love everyone. And again, that was the final remarks there. Trump also said he partnered with these relief agencies to bring help. And, you look at these pictures and, man, it's just tough. It's tough to look at. I'm born in Brooklyn but raised in Jersey. And let me tell you, I remember Hurricane Sandy. And Hurricane Sandy tore up New Jersey from the beginning to the end, right? From North Jersey all the way down to Cape May. Destroying the shore, flooding the, Edgewater, West New York, all of these areas here, North Jersey areas. It was brutal. And they're trying to get internet replaced. And Elon Musk has something called Starlink that's connected to his SpaceX program to bring a satellite internet service. And Trump said he's in negotiations with Elon Musk to try and bring Starlink, or at least SpaceX, to Georgia and to the areas that have been affected by this devastation of Hurricane Helene. Sounds to me like Trump is doing more for the American people than the elected vice president and president of the United States, Kamala Harris and Joe El Baboso Biden. Now, of course, I say that to take a shot at them, not because it's of any surprise. I'm not surprised in the least that they're not doing anything or not enough. It's just how it is. Anyway, Trump saying, I just spoke to Elon Musk. We want to get Starlink hooked up because we have no communication whatsoever, and Elon will always come through. We know that, so we're working on that. Then Trump took a shot at President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, saying that he's calling on them to be more involved in the relief efforts. We do need some help from the federal government, he says. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. The governor needs to be, and he's been trying to get a hold of them. I'm sure they're going to come through, but he's been calling the president and hasn't been able to get through. But they will come through. I'm sure of it. That's Trump. Again, whether it's political grandstanding or not, if you're the sitting president, you've got everything at your disposal. Trump has one plane that he owns. That's it. These people have an entire army. They can do whatever they need to do. It just goes to show you who really cares about people and who doesn't. That's the bottom line for me. Unbelievable and unreal. But that's what we've got. Anyway, some of the other things I want to get into tonight, because we got a lot to discuss. I want to get with one of our favorite commentators, Bill O'Reilly. He's coming up in a little bit. He's going to tell us about the 2024 election, and he's going to tell us about a new book that he's got called Confronting the Presidents. That's going to be fun. And then a little bit after that, we're going to have a conversation about this incoming, I should say, impending strike right? You've got the longshoremen that are poised to go on strike at midnight if they don't strike a deal. And it means containers coming in from all over the world are going to be stuck at the ports, and they're not going to make their way onto trucks that are being driven by the Teamsters. So the longshoremen are trying to negotiate. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to talk about the repercussions of that with former White House economist, associate director of the Council of Economic Advisors in the White House in the Office of Management and Budget. Vance Ginn is scheduled to join us a little bit after that. And then we're going to have some more conversation from you all on what's going on in America at night. Plus, it's Open Phone America, any topic, anytime. So keep it locked right here, folks. We've got a lot to discuss. The telephone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you're listening online, it's richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming up now with Bill O'Reilly. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, and as promised, we're going to continue our conversation with a dig into a deep dive, right, into the presidents. Now, he's famous for his Killing series, but he deviated on this one. This one's called Confronting the Presidents. The author is Bill O'Reilly, and he's our guest. Bill O'Reilly, welcome back, sir. Tell us a little bit about why you deviated from the Killing series and what inspired this new edition, Confronting the Presidents.
Well, we've got 13 Killing books, the most popular nonfiction book series of all time. And because this is such a historic year with the presidential vote, I wanted to shift into telling Americans about each of the 45 men who've held the office.
And again, we're talking about Confronting the Presidents, which is now #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction books. And Bill O'Reilly, you were just telling us about the shift in the Killing series to Confronting the Presidents was because of this year's seemingly historic vote.
Yeah, I want to give Americans and everybody all over the world a very vivid look at all 45 men who have held the office. So we begin with George Washington and we end with Joe Biden. The interesting part of the book is because history is not unfolded entirely with Biden and Trump, my co-author Martin Dugard and I wrote essays about them. We don't deal with them the way we deal with the other 43 men. And it's a fun read. Open big, as you mentioned. Thank you for mentioning it's #1 on the Times list. That's the 19th book I've had at the top of that list. That must bring them great joy, Rich, don't you think, to see my name at the top of their bestseller list?
I'm thinking they hate life when they see that. Unbelievable. Good for you, Bill O'Reilly.
Thank you. So when you read the book, you'll know how Americans responded to all the presidents, and some of them are excellent, but some of them are really horrible. And it's almost like a primer when you go to vote. You got to think about, what the consequences are of who you're voting for. And both candidates this year are flawed. Obviously, we know that. But it's almost like who's going to do the least amount of damage to the country. That's the kind of situation we're in, and we've been here before.
Absolutely. And Bill O'Reilly is our guest, the author of Confronting the Presidents. And Bill O'Reilly, you walk us through, obviously, every president from Washington through Biden and Trump. And tell us some of the standouts along the way. Obviously, I'm thinking President Lincoln has to be arguably one of the biggest standouts in the book.
Yeah, we don't rank them. I want the reader to do that themselves. But Lincoln, for me, far and away the best president because he was handed an unbelievable catastrophe by the worst president, the guy before him, James Buchanan, who was a coward and failed to confront the ferocity of the South, which was rising. And then when Lincoln came in from Illinois, I mean, it was a fait accompli that this war would take place, more than 1 million Americans killed from one side to the other. And Lincoln got through it. He lost a young son during his time in the White House. His wife was kind of a nut, and he still maintained his dignity. He was a very compassionate man. So for me, he's number one. Washington was a good president because he forged the country. He understood what the federal government had to do to rein in the 13 states, the new states. FDR was a good president because he was confronted with the Great Depression and World War II. I don't think I want to hang around with Franklin Roosevelt. Wasn't my kind of guy, but he was effective. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was a good president. Reagan was a good president. Both of them lifted the morale of the nation, which is very important. Barack Obama, I have as a fairly good president when all the history is counted. He worked very, very hard. I didn't agree with him on the massive spending approach, but what he did for African Americans obviously was historic.
Folks, again, we're on with Bill O'Reilly, host of No Spin News. Check him out at BillO'Reilly.com, and he is the author of the book, Confronting the Presidents. And Bill O'Reilly, how does this book stack up against any other, I guess, historical or just biographical take on the previous presidents?
Well, my books are designed to be fun to read. That's a big separation. I mean, you can go and get a 600-page book on Calvin Coolidge, but you're going to have to kill yourself, Rich.
Yeah, why would anyone want to do that?
Yeah, I know. But that's what most history is, plodding along, and then this happened, that happened, this happened. In Confronting the Presidents, we tell you something you didn't know on every page. So we open the book with George Washington. The lead sentence in the book is, George Washington is mad at his mother. And George and his mom did not get along, and she drove him crazy. He didn't even go to her funeral. Nobody knows that.
Wow.
And then in every case, we take you inside the White House to how these men behaved. Some of them, like Warren Harding, abysmal, awful. John Tyler was a traitor. But others rose to the occasion, like James K. Polk. Everybody thinks he's a rapper. No, he was a really good president, and nobody knows anything about him. So my job as a historian / journalist is to write history in quote-unquote an accessible way. That means you learn, but you're having fun at the same time.
Outstanding. Folks, we're on with Bill O'Reilly, and he's got this amazing book. I recommend getting 2 copies of it, one for yourself, one to give away to anybody who loves history and wants to learn about the presidents of these United States. And it's called Confronting the Presidents. Make sure you check out the book, get a copy or 2, and check out Bill O'Reilly on No Spin News. And we're coming right back with Bill O'Reilly.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Bill O'Reilly, host of No Spin News, and he's no stranger to most of you listening to this program. And Bill O'Reilly is the author of the new book, Confronting the Presidents. Bill O'Reilly, who would you say is the most scandalous president, being that you just did this deep dive into the last 46 men?
Scandalous. Probably Harding. And it's interesting because I try to, in each of the profiles, link in the past presidents with what's going on today. And I don't think she knows it, but Kamala Harris's campaign is exactly like Warren Harding's in 1920. Harding wouldn't give any interviews. He wouldn't answer any questions. He just waved to everybody from his porch in Marion, Ohio. Nobody knew what they were voting for, but they were so fed up with Woodrow Wilson and 8 years of the Democrats in the World War I era that they elected the Republican Harding, gets in there, and he's the worst. All he does is play cards with his corrupt friends, get drunk, and chase his mistress around the White House. The guy was just a disaster. And that's a cautionary note. If you don't know where presidential candidates stand on issues and they're unproven, more often than not, you're going to get somebody who's going to hurt the country. The guy who surprised me the most on the corruption level was Lyndon Johnson. So before we started researching the book, Johnson did some good civil rights stuff. I've got a bunch of letters that he wrote, and he seemed to be okay to me. I was alive when JFK got killed and Johnson took over. But the more we investigated Johnson, the more corruption we found. I mean, this guy was really wicked. And the terrible decisions he made in Vietnam cost the lives of about 100,000 Americans. I mean, they put the count at 58,000, but a lot died from Agent Orange and other wounds that suffered over there. Johnson knew that this was not going to come out good for America, yet he kept it going. So Johnson really lands on the villain list hard.
Johnson is on the villain list. And Bill O'Reilly, what about in more, I guess, modern history? Who really takes the cake, whether it's mistresses or scandals? What do you say? Well,
Kennedy had the most women involved in his life. There's no doubt about that. I wrote a book called Killing Kennedy, and it goes over how he governed. In Confronting the Presidents, we open with Kennedy on a boat with Ben Bradley, the editor of the Washington Post. And Kennedy was able to co-opt the press into basically ignoring anything bad he did and just saying good things about him. Very, very clever and effective. So Kennedy would be the most, let's say, flamboyant, if you want to use that word. Johnson was up there, though. Johnson had mistresses and he was running around, and, Lady Bird knew about it, but, put up with it. FDR had it and died in the company of his mistress, Lucy Mercer. Dwight Eisenhower, the straight arrow, he had the British officer that he got involved with. So these guys are just men. They're human beings like the rest of us. And again, I leave it to the reader. A guy like Eisenhower governed the country well in the 1950s. He was a good president, but, he had he smoked 5 packs of cigarettes a day, Rich.
Wow.
5 packs of cigarettes a day.
Unbelievable.
Can you imagine that?
No.
100 cigarettes a day?
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
You talk about Carter and oil prices tripling, the Iran hostage crisis, the Soviet Union invading Afghanistan, and his malaise speech. And it makes me think about today with us being, 37 days away from Election Day. And I feel like the Democrats are going to try and maybe release some oil, maybe try to make it look like the economy's doing better, perhaps do another rate cut. Do you think all of these pre-election day gimmicks are going to work or no?
No, it's too late. It's the economy, it's the border, it's Trump. Those are the three that will decide the race. So obviously people are paying more for the essentials of life. Harris blames Trump. Everybody knows that's bogus. When Trump left, inflation was 1.4%. The border is a catastrophe that will punish this country for decades to come.
Absolutely.
Trump is almost a self-destructive character at this point. instead of concentrating on what he did for 4 years, because he governed pretty well.
Yeah.
He just can't stop the personal attacks and eating Cocker Spaniels or whatever crazy thing that, he comes up with, which totally distorts and deviates away from the good things that he did. So those are the three. And the hate Trump movement is keeping Kamala Harris competitive. It's not her. It's an anti-Trump vote.
So what's your advice as an advisor to either campaign? What do you advise the candidates between now and Election Day?
That's an excellent question. Number one, I don't advise anybody unless they ask for it. So I do speak to Donald Trump on occasion. I haven't spoken to him lately because I usually tell him the truth, and he doesn't really want to hear that. I would say, look, the more you can humanize yourself in TV spots and tell people, yeah, I know you might not like me, but look, I was a plus for this country, and here's why. Just be very fact-basis. That's where I would take him. But humanize, be human. With Harris, I don't know how to advise her because I don't know whether she even understands the problems. I mean, you're looking at somebody who is so ill-defined, even to me, who knows everybody. I have no idea. I know that she's a progressive, the most far-left candidate by far ever to run for the presidency. I know that, but I don't know her intellectual capacity. She's a machine politician. Totally. Same guys that ran the Biden White House are running her campaign with a few Obama people sprinkled in. So, when you ask her a direct question, as you know, Rich, she tells you she was raised in a middle-class home.
She liked her
it
neighbor's
doesn't really
lawn.
get us anywhere, does it?
Right. Unbelievable. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Trump's to lose at this point, and my hope is that he'll stay laser focused and that she'll continue to be as scatterbrained as she is. And I think a lot of people, despite the cover up from the left within the media, will they see it. They see that the fact that she's just a kind of fabricated candidate that has, she's all sizzle and no steak. What do you think if you had to be in the prediction game? How do you call it with electoral college votes?
You can't call it now because other things are going to happen. So I call the Biden dropping out of the race 8 months before it happened. I would think as the first national commentator to do it. I knew it was going to happen because my mother had the same condition that Biden has. Yeah, and I went through it.
It's brutal.
And so I knew it wasn't going to get any better, and that was going to happen. So I called it. But as far as the election, I can't call it because there are going to be other surprises, not on the level of the attempted assassinations or anything like that. That's not, I don't believe it will happen in the next 5 weeks. But there are going to be revelation stuff that people don't know. And if Trump course corrects just a little bit, and he takes my advice by humanizing himself a little bit, he can pull away.
Outstanding. Bill O'Reilly is the author of Confronting the Presidents. Make sure you pick up 2 copies, one for yourself, one to give away. Confronting the Presidents, no spin assessments from Washington to Biden. Bill O'Reilly, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I want to thank you for being with us tonight.
It's always a pleasure, Rich. Thanks for having me in. And I do want to say one more thing about the book.
Yes.
If you know a kid or a young adult, I would say between 14 and 25, who is they have to be interested in their country, not on the cell phone 24/7. This is a perfect book for them because they'll never get this in a history class. Thanks again for having me in, Rich. Appreciate it.
You bet. Duly noted. Bill O'Reilly, everyone. And folks, we come back with your thoughts and more, plus the latest with the Biden border, Kamala, and all the craziness. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The devastation from Hurricane Helene is immense. Millions of Americans are without power. Thousands of families have lost their homes. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed. Major roads have been blocked or damaged, leaving entire towns inaccessible at this very moment. Already, nearly 100 people have been confirmed dead, and hundreds more are missing. The destruction we have seen in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia is heartbreaking. In coordination with state and local officials, President Biden and I will continue to make sure that communities have the support and the resources that they need, not only to respond to this storm and its immediate aftermath, but also the resources they will need to recover.
That, of course, is Que Mala Eres. She is speaking about all of the things that are going wrong. Just like a question when you ask her what's going on with the economy, she'll sit there and tell you that it costs more for a loaf of bread, it costs more for a pound of ground beef. She gives you all the problems and gives you none of the solutions, as if she's not the person that's elected, right? She's elected. It wasn't like that she just got hired for this job. She was elected to the vice presidency. And she, I think it escapes her that she should be ashamed, but she should be ashamed. This is serious business here. The Helene death toll is over 130, according to the Associated Press. Fresh water, fuel, medical supplies, and other essential supplies are being rushed to this flood-stricken area, some of them by President Trump. And this is all going on today, after this hurricane left a trail of destruction across the southeast. Now, I don't know about you, but these things are always brutal. Right? It's brutal to watch a natural disaster because you feel like you can't do anything about it. And look, I got a nephew. If you guys were listening last week, it was last week, Monday, that we had Senator Blackburn on. And I was telling her my nephew had just gone out this week to Tennessee. He's going to become a Tennessee state trooper. And he's out there in the middle of this. And thank God he's okay. But man, it's like many of you listening, you have family in these areas that are hit by this. And it's not funny. It's not fun at all. There are people that have lost their lives. There are people without power. There are people that have a serious need. And they're relying on the people with the most ability to provide. And they're expecting their government to provide. This is when we rely on our government. And whatever's happening isn't happening fast enough. Anyway, let's go to the phones. I want to check in with Ralph in Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Ralph, go right ahead.
Captain Valdez, what's going on, man?
How are you, sir? What's going on in your part of the world?
I'm doing good. We're up in Vermont, and the thing is, we got punched a couple times with flooding, and people are starting to realize you can't put a house so darn close to the, to the creek or the river or whatever.
Yeah.
And the same thing as the North America. Look at from Newfoundland all the way down to the coast and the Gulf of Gulf of Mexico.
Ralph, just as you're pointing that out, I just want to say back in was 2005, right? Hurricane Katrina filled up Louisiana like a bowl. And I remember then they were saying, well, we'd never seen a hurricane like this, and it broke through the levees, et cetera. And there was a lot of talk about why the levees broke, all that. All of that aside, though, that was one of the things people were saying. People knew that this place was shaped like a bowl, and that in the event of a severe water natural event, a hurricane, tornado, tsunami, that type of thing, this would be catastrophic. And most people just thought it wouldn't happen or it would never happen. And the point you're bringing up, that people are living too close to the coastline, too close to the source of water, it becomes a question. Do we prepare for these once in 100-year storms, once in 50-year storms? Do we give up waterfront living for the fear of hurricanes or not? I don't know the answer, but I can tell you this. I love me some waterfront living. Ralph.
But I'm really thinking that proactively, if FEMA and all them have to get together every year to get together to do their thing, obviously someone's got to have command and control, and someone's really not there right now.
Yeah, right. It seems like everybody's asleep at the wheel. When you got a president like Joe El Baboso Biden and a vice president like Kamala Harris, when you ask her a question, hey, what are you going to do to help the economy? And she says, well, I grew up in a middle-class home. I really like my lawn, my neighbor's lawn. We all took pride in our lawns. And, the cost of bread is too high. The cost of eggs are too high. And things are just way too expensive. That's not an answer. And that's not the type of leader anybody's looking for, especially in a time like this. And I'm happy that Trump took the lead and showed up today, both politically and practically, right? Politically, it was a good move, but practically speaking, he actually is helping people. Even if it's not, the greatest number of people, he's helping some amount of these people. He's showing face and he's there, and he's proving that it can be done. And lamentably, the former president's outshining the current president and vice president. Ralph in Burlington, Vermont, thank you for your call. WVMT, shout out to you guys. Folks are coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people. Of course, I am Rich Valdez. I'm here with you till 1 a.m. Eastern time at Rich Valdez with an S on the social media. I'd love it if you give me a follow there. I tend to use Instagram a little bit more than the other ones. I'm on Truth Social a lot as well as Twitter, and hopeful that we can connect online. And I want to get to a call here. Let's see. Who is it? We've got calls from Chicago, Montana, but the one that's up next is from Oregon, KUMA. Let's check in with Monica. Monica, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi. How are you doing this evening?
Wonderful for a Monday. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I watched Donald Trump speak with the people there in Georgia, and it was really impressive that they were delivering the supplies, things, so they can communicate again, and the moment of silence where we could pray, and food, water, gas, things like that. And if I recall right, I don't recall I think it was a media outlet. I don't recall, but Joe apparently, if I understood, so Joe Biden they reached out to Joe Biden. Word was they didn't have any more supplies or any aid to give to those victims, and yet it got my blood boiling tonight when you.
Monica, I got to pause right there because we got to take this break. But yes, this has been all the talk of the town today. Joe Biden's very curt response to the hurricane, and we'll get to that as well. Folks, don't go anywhere. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the longshoremen strike and more. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Monday night. We're live, we're national, and the phone number is 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. Thanks for tuning in to my favorite late night talk show. Hopefully it's your favorite late night talk show as well. And I am Rich Valdez. I'm going to be with you still straight until 1 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you over the next couple of hours. And some of the things we're talking about today, Trump visited Valdosta, Georgia to talk about the supplies that he brought with him to help people that were in need as a result of the hurricane. Meanwhile, President Biden basically just gave some comments. Listen to this.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone. And all my security people.
Okay, well, folks, he commanded the telephone. I didn't make it up. Joel Barbosa Biden said he's commanding the telephone. Meanwhile, El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, he's commanding the people. He's commanding the supplies. He's commanding water and gasoline tankers that are going to disaster-stricken areas, while good old Joel Barbosa Biden is commanding the telephone. Now, listen. People are going to say, Rich, that's an unfair criticism, blah, blah, blah. I'll say this. A, all's fair in love and war, and what do you think politics falls under, right? And B, when you are the president and it's an election year and people are dying, 130 people are dead. That's the latest death toll from the Associated Press. 130 lives have been claimed by this hurricane, which at the time was a tropical depression. And it was still wreaking havoc, flooding, destroying homes, bricks being shattered, brick walls just being torn apart by the hurricane winds. And you're going to sit there and be arrogant about it? Listen, I can be as arrogant as the next guy. I really can. But come on. This isn't working. When Trump is being more humble than you, you're losing, bro. You're really losing. I have to tell you, Trump has an issue with bravado, right? They say he's got too much swag, he's got too much this and too much that. Trump was incredibly contrite in his comments. And I think Biden needed to take a page from that playbook and do the same to respect these people. Harris, more so. Anyway, that's what's happening there. And then you've got some swing state polls that are coming in, and they look like good news for El Trompito. Just give you a quick update here. A couple of things that are going on. You've got some of these things. Atlas Intel was one of the most accurate polls back in 2020. They just released their numbers on swing states. They've got Trump at 290 electoral college votes. Remember, you only need 270 to win. And Harris at 248, if the election were held today. Michigan, Trump, he's up 3.4 points. Pennsylvania, Trump is up 2.9 points. Wisconsin, Trump is up 1.5 points. Arizona, Trump is up 1.2 points. Georgia, Trump is up 0.6 points. North Carolina, Harris is up 2.4 points. Nevada also going to Harris. But when it's all said and done, this poll comes in with Harris at 248 electoral college votes and Trump at 290 being declared the winner. So that's the current state of affairs here on this particular poll. And again, it's a poll like any other poll, but as you get closer to Election Day, I feel like the polls get a little better. And this is the real deal. We're in the thick of it, right? We're weeks away. What is it, 5 weeks away, 37 days? This is a big deal. This is the Super Bowl of my work. I love this stuff. Anyway, so that's a little something on that. And I want to talk about what's going on with this strike. There is tons of talk about this impending strike. You've got the International Longshoremen's Association, the union for the port workers. They're saying, look, that's it. At midnight tonight, just a short 48 minutes from now, they're going on strike, and they're not going to lift a finger. They're not taking a single container off of a ship and putting it on a truck. Not happening. That means people aren't going to get toothpaste. They're not going to get their necessities. Now, they'll get it, but the stuff that's coming in to replenish what's already on the shelves might be delayed. And what does that do? That's going to cost us some money. At least that's my math. We're going to find out more. But I want you to listen to this report that kind of details exactly what we might be looking at. Check this out.
This union has about 85,000 members throughout the country. It would impact more than a dozen states if the strike happens. And if the strike happens, it will cost upwards of $500 million a day. And it will hit major retailers like Home Depot, IKEA, and Walmart. Items from electronics to canned goods, all on massive cargo ships that we know go in and out every single day. And there's already talk about the potential strike's impact to the winter holiday season, since every day of a strike would take between 3 to 5 days to get back to normal. Now, the International Longshoremen Association union members say they want more money for the work that they provide, and they also want job protection from automated technology. This would be a 6-year contract that they're trying to negotiate right now. President Biden could step in and stop the entire situation, but at this time, he has declined.
Now, I don't know if you guys remember. I do remember Biden doing the same exact thing when it was the Teamsters, right? The Teamsters were up for a contract renewal, and they wanted this, and they were asking for that, and the union didn't want to give the membership everything they were asking for. And it was October, and it was just before Christmas. I guess that was, what, 2020? Maybe, right? 2019? And if I'm not mistaken, could be a different year, but it was during Biden's term in office. And he got in right at the last minute, and I guess to no avail, because they had already figured out what they were willing to capitulate on and what they weren't. And, he tried to look like a hero, but he, made some comments, come on, knock it off, that type of thing, and to try and look like he was making something happen. But in reality, he didn't. And here we are now, again, with him waiting on the sidelines for the last minute. Now, the question politically for me becomes, is he doing this on purpose? Is he doing it to sabotage Kamala because they forced his hand to get out of the race? Is he saying, look, I don't like Trump, but I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to hand this thing to you, right? I don't know, because it seems like, you would think 5 weeks before Election Day that he'd be all over this, saying, no, Vice President Harris and I, or who I like to call President Harris and I, he would have come out there making some statements, swinging, trying to blame Trump for this. But instead, that hasn't happened. So I want to get the perspective of somebody who understands these things, former Associate Director of the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. He was an economist during the Trump years. He's now president of Ginn Economic Consulting. Vance Ginn, welcome back.
Hey, Rich. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you being here and helping the rest of us understand this stuff, because from my perspective, this looks like it could, it has the ability to be catastrophic, but I also see it from a political perspective where maybe they're just really holding out, looking for a deal, and they have no intention of really striking. I don't know. I guess it could go either way. What's your take on this?
Well, I tend to agree with you, but the clock is ticking, and we're getting a lot closer, like you said, about 45 minutes from whenever they're supposed to start their strike from this longshoresman. And it's interesting, Rich, because they get together and they have these union bosses go up and try to make these big demands. And the demand was to have a 77% increase in their pay over the next 6 years.
I want one too.
And look, yeah, me too, man. That's right. It's a massive increase to about, I think it's like close to $68 an hour is what they were expecting to get up to. And what they came from the side, and at first they were around 40% increase over the next 6 years, which is already quite a bit that they wouldn't capitulate to the workers union. And then they said, okay, we'll give you a 50% increase over that period, which is a substantial increase there, 25% increase from what they first offered. And they still said no. So really the demands are such that it looks like along the East Coast, we're going to see a lot of people go on strike at midnight.
Yeah, it seems that way to me. I don't think we're going to avoid the strike. And I listen, I don't think there's a union out there that doesn't like going to strike. I think they love it because the media sensationalizes it. And honestly, I don't think this one needs to be too sensationalized. The ports are major, right? I know that. Look, I'm in Jersey now. We got Port Elizabeth, Port Newark. There's a ton of stuff that comes into the country through there. And I can't imagine how that's going to be when it piles up. I had a buddy that used to, matter of fact, you may have heard this if you've listened to the show before, but Vance Ginn, I oftentimes talk about a Cuban friend of mine that defected from Cuba, or I should say escaped Cuba as an exile, came to Florida on the back of a jet ski. And this guy came here and eventually became a truck driver. And that's where he worked, at the port in Port Newark in New Jersey. And he would, they put containers right back on the back of his truck, and he would move them around. And he was telling me, he said, bro, when they do this gets out of control quick. They won't lift a finger. They will walk as slow as they can. He said they even breathe slower because the union's on them to make sure that they don't work. And most of the membership doesn't even want to do the strike because, they're kind of nervous. They want to just do what they do. But the union wants to prolong this so that they can get the membership, right? They want to be able to get the best deal possible. So I don't know. I'm hearing all sorts of this report that we just heard said $25 billion a day. Does that sound realistic to you?
It does. I mean, this is a massive amount of, things that we're importing that are coming in for not only for parts, like intermediate parts for a lot of things we buy, but also we're talking about cars. We're talking about food and groceries. I heard someone even say that they were going to go stock up on toilet paper because they didn't want to go through what they did in 2020. I don't know that I hope that it doesn't reach that sort of level, and hopefully they get this deal struck soon. But it's just unfortunate that these union bosses, and this is really who's leading it, kind of to your point, it's not the workers. I mean, yes, they want raises and everything, but they're paying these fees and dues, and oftentimes being forced to that go up to these union bosses to make these different deals. And unfortunately, they're going to keep pushing this, and it's going to hurt Americans, not only those workers, but it could hurt many more Americans. Because what happens to their jobs if they don't have the parts that they need, if they don't have the supplies that they need for their businesses? This could have a lot of ripple effects throughout the economy.
Lots of unintended consequences. Folks,
yes.
Vance Ginn is president of Ginn Economic Consulting, host of Let the People Prosper podcast. Make sure you check that out. And he's a senior fellow at Americans for Tax Reform, great organization. And he's a former associate director for economic policy at the White House Office of Management and Budget, OMB. They're the ones always making the headlines. Vance Ginn, I want you to stick with us. We're not totally done with this topic. I want to talk about this, but I also want to get your take on the economic impact of immigration as well. So stick with us, folks. We're coming right back with Vance Ginn.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Now, a lot of these truckers, I'll tell you, if this strike comes off, and it certainly looks like it will, they're not going to be working. Gene LaFortune has been driving at this port for 40 years?
Yes, sir.
40 years. If you don't work, if this shuts down tomorrow, what happens to you?
I don't get paid because I get paid daily. If it shut down, that means I got to wait whenever they settle. Then whenever they start moving, that's the time
Because you get paid only by the load, right?
Yeah, by the load, yes.
He drives for IMC Logistics, one of the biggest intermodal freight companies in the country.
That report from Jeff Flock, Fox News. And this is, again, this is the impact of affecting truckers. If you can't get stuff off of the ships and the containers out of the ship and onto the port, and from the port onto the back of a truck, you're not getting anything. Vance Ginn is our guest. He is the president of Ginn Economic Consulting. He hosts a great podcast. You got to check it out. It's called Let the People Prosper podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that. And he's also the former associate director for economic policy at the White House Office of Management and Budget during the Trump years. Vance Ginn, welcome back. Let's talk about the economic impact of what this longshoreman strike could cost, not just the industry, but all Americans.
Well, we noted earlier about the $25 billion daily, kind of the direct cost here, but that could be a lot higher given the indirect cost of different parts not making it to different locations and allowing for those intermediate goods to go into the final products. Also, the cars and the dealerships that are selling those cars, what's that going to do to that are being imported, right? What's that going to do to those salesmen and those jobs? So, I mean, this is going to have, like we said earlier, kind of a ripple effect throughout the economy where, depending on how many days this goes on, we could be looking at hundreds of billions of dollars worth of economic activity that will not happen. And this is right before the election as well, which is kind of an interesting thing here politically, is that these union workers and union bosses in particular typically will like to vote for Democrats. And at the same time, this could be a big hit right to the economy and to the labor market right before we get to the elections. And so it'll be interesting to see how long this goes into place before the politicians really start to say, hey, what's going on here? And you might even see the Biden administration try to pull strings a little bit more to get this done. And so we could see this even blow up even more depending on what the political posturing is of the Biden administration.
Well, Vance Ginn, this is what I was thinking. I'm thinking, and I know you're an economist and you worked in the White House and you're not a politician per se, but I'm thinking we're 37 days away from Election Day. If Joe Biden were on the ticket, I can guarantee you he'd be doing everything to avoid this strike. The last thing he wants is a strike going into Election Day, right? But I think since they twisted his arm and kind of forced him off the ballot and out of the race, he's thinking, you deal with it, right? And they can't. Yeah. He can deal with it. Yeah. So it's kind of like, what are you going to give me to fix your problem is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And, it's been interesting, too, because at the Republican convention, the head of the Teamsters was there as part of the union, and talked to the Republican convention. And so there's almost been this shift, right, of the worker class going more towards the Republicans than to Democrats. And that's been a huge shift here recently. I wonder if this will contribute to more of that, because many of those who are workers, whether they agree with what the union bosses are doing for this longshoresman and this potential strike, which will likely happen soon, will this even push them more away from the Biden administration and more towards Donald Trump?
Right. Well, all I can tell you is, look, from a political perspective, you're the economist, not me, but I can tell you from purely observing politics, you got to be a special kind of stupid to allow this to happen, right? Like Harris and Biden. This is only going to help Trump. Trump's saying their economy sucks. Their economy sucks. And now all of a sudden you're going to have the economy start sucking this badly right before Election Day. I mean, it's crazy. It's almost like Trump picked up the phone and said, hey, guys, can you please jam up the ports? Do me a favor. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Vance Ginn, stick with me, brother. I want to continue this conversation and also what I mentioned before about getting your take on the economic impact of illegal immigration in our country. Folks, we're going to come right back with Vance Ginn, president of Ginn Economic Consulting, former White House economist. All that coming up, plus your calls. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back. Keep it locked.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation, and I want to play a clip of audio for you. You've got, the chubby guy who's the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Well, he was on CNN yesterday with Jake Tapper, who I like to call Fake Tapper. And believe it or not, he's blaming the border crisis in the United States on the fact that people are migrating all over the world. I don't know. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of like, imagine getting your house broken into and somebody saying, well, they're robbing houses all over the city. What do I care? I really don't care if they're robbing houses all over the city. I care they're robbing my house. I don't understand that logic. It's stupid. It's meant to normalize something that shouldn't be normalized in the first place. Anyway, check out J.B. Pritzker with Fake Tapper.
Why do you think voters who care about this issue should believe her now when she says she's going to address this border crisis as a moderate or as a even center-right kind of position, especially when this crisis spiraled out of control on the Biden administration's watch?
Well, remember, there's been massive migration all throughout the world, people literally moving from one country to another, and that began to increase significantly over the last 4 years. So it's natural, of course, that you adapt your policies to meet the moment. And what Kamala Harris has put forward is that she would stand up for the bipartisan border security bill that Donald Trump torpedoed.
All right, hold on. So 2 points on this before we go back to our guest, because I really want to point this out. So imagine again, you get robbed and you go to the cops and you're like, hey, look, I got robbed. They go, well, naturally, everybody's getting robbed in this neighborhood. It's a bad neighborhood. So naturally, you were going to get robbed. Excuse me? It doesn't work that way. Nobody wants to hear that. Mr. Pritzker is bad at his job. If this is the best they can do it as a surrogate for Kamala Harris, oh boy, I feel sorry for her. And then the second part is that he tries to pin it all on Trump. Trump torpedoed the bill. Let me tell you something. If I was an impartial person and somebody were to tell me that the sitting president and vice president with all that power in the executive branch couldn't get a bill through either of the houses, right? Because they suck, right? Because that's really it, right? They just didn't have the ability to pull it off. And we're going to blame this on Trump torpedoing a bill. Now, whether or not Trump had the influence to do that or not is irrelevant. If it's true, I wouldn't want anybody to know that Trump has that kind of power in Congress. Because obviously you're going to want to vote for the guy that can get bills torpedoed in Congress. These people seem to be running the most backward campaign ever. But anyway, Trump responds to a quick comment about what he would do if he gets elected with respect to immigration. Check this out.
What's your message to those 1.3 million who have been paroled in the country and are expecting to stay here?
Get ready to leave, especially quickly if they're criminals. Get ready to leave because you're going to be going out real fast.
It doesn't get more direct than that. Now, I want to talk about the economic impact of this. You've got millions upon millions upon millions of illegal migrants in the country of all ages. And they're costing somebody a lot of money. For most intent and purpose, I'm going to presume that a lot of this stuff, the bill is being footed by the taxpayer. Right? It's not like there's any public charge rules that are in effect where they're saying, look, no, you can't come to the country unless you can provide for yourself or you've got a sponsor or you're going to live with family. None of that's happening. So this stuff is landing on us. Now, I saw a social media post the other day of a waitress that posted a copy of a bill, a receipt. Someone came and ate and they paid with the debit card that they were given at the border. And on it, it shows you the balance that's left over, both in cash and in EBT funds, the food stamp portion of it. And based on the number, you could see it was something like $18,000 were left, right? Like $3,000 for cash and $15,000 for food. That likely this thing started out at $20,000 that was put on a debit card. I don't know for what amount of time. I don't know if it's a one-shot deal, but that's what was on there. Now, I've never gotten a $20,000 debit card for food stamps or cash from the federal government, but obviously some of the folks that are coming across the border are getting that, at least based on this information I've seen on the internet. And you're free to look it up if you'd like. This is kind of crazy, right? So I want to go back to our guest. Thank you for patiently waiting. Former White House economist Vance Ginn. What do you think about this?
Yeah, Rich, I mean, it's just a catastrophe is really what it is. I mean, this is a humanitarian crisis going along the border that the Biden administration can't get under control. I mean, this is a border between two countries. This is a federal issue. And I happen to live in Texas, so I see this, directly. And it's affecting us as well because, the Governor Abbott's been doing a lot of things along the border that's cost Texans directly about $15 billion of higher taxes. That's basically socializing the costs here in the Lone Star State for what the Biden administration isn't wanting to do. And
right,
Kamala Harris,
the
being the quote-unquote border czar, has been just sitting around, not doing much at all. And so this is a huge problem that's going on. And, I've been doing some research on this recently, Rich, where if you look at the net cost of giving, illegals about 11 or 12 million, depending on how you look at it, Medicare is what some have looked at, especially Kamala Harris and her Medicare for All plan, is that the net cost of just adding those on could be an additional $1.8 trillion on top of the $42 trillion they would cost to do Medicare for All. So this is also contributing to bankrupting the country, not only the politics and everything else that's going along with it.
Wow. So, Vance Ginn, you bring up a good point. I was just talking about, and again, I don't believe that every single person is getting these $20,000 debit cards. I don't know if that's a limited time off or whatever, but I do realize that there is cash assistance going on. There is TANF assistance going on. There are women with children coming, and I expect us to be somewhat benevolent. But all charity, right, I think has to start at home, right? You got to feed your family before you can feed somebody off the street. And I feel like that part is getting lost on us. What can you tell us about that part of it, the cost associated with this, I don't know, I guess this unending benevolence?
Well, it's a huge cost. I mean, it also has influenced not only people demanding some of these services and finding ways to get around the law, because there's most of these programs you should not be able to get if you're not here legally, but they will find ways to get on it. But some of them you can, and it also trickles down, of course, to us, the people, in paying a higher cost, not only of taxes, but inflation, higher interest rates, and other things throughout the economy. And so while some of these things may seem small on the surface, it's adding up to major costs over time. And just like I was saying before, I mean, just Medicare, expanding that to these folks, which hasn't happened yet, but it's been a proposal, could add an additional almost $2 trillion in net costs over the next decade. And this is on top of the expected $22 trillion increase in the national debt that we're already expecting, Rich. So, I mean, this is just a cost that continues to mount and blow up. And it's unfortunate for the people who are all getting caught in the middle of this game, to where at some point we've got to say, well, you know what, enough is enough. We've got to figure out a better immigration system. Our visa system's broken. The border law and issues are broken. There's got to be a better way and to get control of this. And it was starting to get more under control whenever Trump was in. Right. It may still have been too many, but maybe we need to move something back to that versus what we're seeing now.
Well, I think you're right, and I think most of the American people agree with you. Whatever segment of the population, right? I think Democrats agree with that. Blacks, Hispanics, whites, Asians, every group that you can split it up into, 58% of Americans agree with a mass deportation. Because I think people realize things are out of control, especially if you live in one of the big cities. If you're in New York and you see what's happening in New York, or if you live near the border in Texas and you see what's going on there, you realize this is just bad. It's not bad for me financially. It's not bad for America. This is bad for those people, for the little girls that are coming in, for these families that are coming in. This is a brutal existence. The United Nations labeling the southern border in Texas the most dangerous border crossing on the planet. I mean, when you see something like that, you got to think, why is that happening in first world United States? It just shouldn't happen, Vance Ginn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a major problem. And when you look at where they're coming from, I mean, you have a lot of them that aren't necessarily coming from Mexico. They're coming from Central America, Guatemala. Some are coming from Venezuela. I mean, yes, you do get a few that are coming from China and other places. But, the Central America and South America right now are really under fire because of the poor government decisions and a lot of socialism and communism and dictatorships that are going on there. It's another lesson of how socialism fails, yet many people in America want us to go further in that direction. And people are fleeing those countries and trying to come here for some form of opportunity. And unfortunately, our system isn't able to handle that. And we haven't been able to make any reforms to figure out how to deal with this issue. And now we're seeing a humanitarian crisis on top of it. So it's a terrible situation on all sides.
Vance Ginn, I want you to tell everybody the best way they can follow you and learn about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, Rich, I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. You can find me at vanceginn.com, where I have all my information. I also have a newsletter at vanceginn.substack.com that you can get my podcast, Let People Prosper, where I have a lot of discussions, just like we're talking about here today, and I bring on experts to talk about these issues as well. It's just a great time, so I hope your audience will check me out as well there. And I'm also at X, formerly known as Twitter, at Vance Ginn. I post a lot of this information there as well.
Folks, Vance Ginn is a former economist in the Trump White House, Associate Director for Economic Policy in the Office of Management and Budget at the White House. He's a senior fellow at Americans for Tax Reform and the host of the Let the People Prosper podcast. I recommend checking that out. Vance Ginn, I want to thank you for being here, brother. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
You bet. All right, amigos, we continue with a couple of more things before we get into open phones across America. That's your opportunity to weigh in on everything that's going on in America at night. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
Most of the time when they turn on the TV and they see stories about immigration, or they open the newspaper and they read stories about immigration, it's about extremely negative stuff. And Harris and Walz are reacting to that shift right on immigration. They are not driving it. They are reacting to it, and they cannot reverse it simply by putting up a chart. The fact is that this is the way the media covers the issue. I mean, look at the B-roll that we're doing right now. We're showing even though migration is down, we're showing B-roll of the border. I mean, this is just how the game works. We can't expect politicians to correct Americans' broadly held misconceptions when the media isn't willing to do that.
Wow, I don't know where to jump in on this one. That guy's name is Adam Serwer, not to be confused with Sewer, and he's an author. He was on MSNBC yesterday, and he's blaming the media for the negative tone about the border as if there were a positive one that anybody could take, right? Now, first thing he says is, look at the way the media covers the issue. So are we to presume, Adam Serwer, that the media should cover the issue the way they cover Joe Biden when the guy was in cognitive decline and obviously not fit for this job, but people saying Joe Biden, he's actually the sharpest we've ever seen him. He's the best he's ever been. I mean, it was complete fake, phony fraud, right? And we know that because when he hit primetime, when everybody decided to watch that debate to see him crush Trump like a bug on the debate, what happened? The guy froze. His wires got crossed. The smoke was coming out of his ears. It was an absolute disaster. Okay, so what makes Adam Serwer think that for some reason that it's Americans that have a broadly held misconception about immigration? Is it a broadly held misconception that when you let people into the country that are escaping another country because they were in prison in another country, or that the report that came out Friday that we have 650,000 criminals from other countries that have entered our country, 13,000 of them convicted of murder in other countries and in our country, whatever that number was, 40 or 50,000 that were convicted of sexual assault or rape? Mr. Serwer, is that a misconception? Should we be throwing a party, Mr. Serwer? I mean, what kind of pendejo is Adam Serwer? I would love to have this guy on the show. I mean, how do you say something like that? How do you say that? We have little girls, 22-year-old, 11 years old, ranging, I don't know, the youngest one was, I think, 8, right? 7 or 8 years old. These little girls that were murdered and raped or attempted to be raped and killed in the process. Now, does that mean that we don't have rapists in America? Of course it does. Does that mean we should be importing more? Hell no. What is wrong with this man? It's the way the media covers it? What a sick dude. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to Doc, Wilmington, Delaware. Doc, we got about a minute. Go for it.
I think what we have to do is a complex thing of building a wall, helping those down the border with jobs with American big business. What we've got to do first, though, is build the wall and throw the criminals out of the country. And we have to keep this country free and secure for those who are here legally, Rich, like your family, my family, and all those who else have waited in line to come here, to be here legally.
Yeah, let me ask you. I agree with you. You're not wrong. But what do you think of this guy, Adam Serwer, saying that the media is covering immigration wrong and that Harris and Walz are on defense because they're reacting to it instead of driving the conversation as if there's a positive way to look at what's going on? What do you think about that?
I think he's probably left of center author, far left liberal. He's trying to blame the media because I think he's probably secretly anti-Trump, and that's his agenda. I see that happening all the time.
I think that
the polls, Rich, so they're all backpedaling.
Of course. I think that you're incredibly generous. You're a real gentleman. God bless you, Doc. I think this guy is an idiot on wheels, and he shouldn't be on TV, that's for sure. But thank God he is so that we could play this stupidity on the radio. And I'm going to have our team reach out to him to see if we could have him come on and share some of that crazy with me. Anyway, Doc, I appreciate it. Shout out to WDEL. And the rest of your calls and more are coming up. Plus, Open Phone America's minutes away. Get your calls in now. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you live till 1 a.m. We're about to kick off Open Phones across America. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Right now we got calls from Arizona, Arkansas, Montana, Idaho, and more coming in. I'm going to go to Lance in Kalispell, Montana, KOFI. Quickly, go for it, brother.
Good evening, sir. Thank you. Hey, given the 1,000 topics of conversation in the media at the moment, and this is September, I would postulate that if we apply Occam's razor, the only mania res or event of great importance remaining for an October surprise would be, God forbid, an event of a 9/11 scale. Yeah. And if applied at appropriate time, could actually impact the voter turnout on election day itself if we were under a declared martial law.
There's no question that could happen. All I can do in a situation like this, because I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have a duck phone and a bat phone to the left and right of me for you guys to give us a call on. But what I'll say, Lance, is this. In the entire history of our country, and I think we're going on 248 years, we've been at war during Election Day, and instances of martial law, including the Civil War, and we still had an election that went off without a hitch. So if we could be in a civil war with nearly 700,000 deaths, or at least north of 600,000, I think we can handle this one. That's just my thought. I tend to be an optimist. Let's see who's right or wrong on the 6th of November. Lance, thanks for the call, brother. Folks, we're coming right back. It's Rich Valdez. Open Phones across America. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, by the way, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of our program. If you're just joining us, welcome. We call this hour Open Phones Across America. It's a tradition on this program as long as I've been alive, dating back to Larry King when he used to host this show, a tradition that was maintained by the late, great Jim Bohannon. Of course, the legacy line, if you want to use that line, you're always welcome to, 866-50-JIMBO. 866-505-4626. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys on just about everything that's going on in America at night. And part of what we talked about thus far on the show tonight was the economic impact of this impending strike by the ILA, the International Longshoremen Association. Those are the guys that work at the ports. What's it going to be? What's it going to cost us? It has potential to cost us a ton of money. Why isn't the Biden administration, Kamala Harris and Joe El Baboso Biden, stepping in to put the kibosh on this thing before it even happens, right? They should be yelling, no mas, right? Like Roberto Duran. They don't want this to happen. But if they let it happen, they're feeding right into Trump's commentary that they have the worst economy ever. So will they allow it to happen? I would suspect not. But hey, what do I know? Right? They might just want to hand this thing over to Trump and then try and lie to everybody and gaslight the world into thinking Trump did this. This is Trump's fault. It's because he tanked the border bill. Anyway, we're going to get your thoughts on that as well. And there's plenty that we got. Trump's taking a little heat for some comments he made. He said that she's mentally impaired. I would say there are times where she definitely comes across that way, but probably, not the best thing to say. But listen to this.
Kamala is mentally impaired. If a Republican did what she did, she did, that Republican would be impeached and removed from office, and rightfully so. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way.
It was funny, right? I thought it was funny. But listen, that's Trump. If he's not throwing a little bit of bombast your way, he's not being Trump. But he took heat for that. The media got on him over the weekend. That was from his speech on Saturday at a rally in Wisconsin. And they went in on him. And Senator Lindsey Graham was on CNN, State of the Union, and he says that Trump called Kamala Harris mentally impaired because her policies are bat crap crazy. Listen to this.
I promise you, women have been raped and murdered. People have been hurt by illegal immigrants released into this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It's crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress thinking it won't embolden Iran. Well, it's crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan, hoping things will be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying your policies are bat crazy.
You got to love him for going off the rails sometimes. God bless him, Senator Lindsey Graham. Anyway, let's get your thoughts on that before we move into some Kamala Harris. Let's see. We've got calls from all over the place tonight. Sedona, Arizona, Arkansas, Illinois, Idaho, and more. I'm looking for calls from California, from New York, from Florida. The number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And let's see, where do we go? We're going to go to Pat in Sedona, Arizona. Streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Pat, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, thank you very much. Trump could be right about the mental case of Harris at some times, but, that's Trump being Trump. And I love him for it. And I'll tell you what, about this border thing, because you were just talking about that before the break. Is there any responsibility? I guess there is responsibility of our government not holding off the border and keeping security, because these people have come into our country and they've actually killed and done awful things to American citizens. And when Joe Biden and Harris were responsible for that? I mean, can you sue them after they're out of office or during office? I know the president has immunity, but does the vice president have immunity? Because it seems like personal responsibility starts at the top of our country, the president, and we're having a problem with that with this guy. This guy, I mean, I don't know what he's doing, but he's wandering around the White House in his pajamas all the time, I think, and drinking Pepsi. Because I tell you what, he's not doing anything. He doesn't care. And this longshoreman thing, you're right. This is going to cause a big hiccup because the supply chains could be interrupted, and it should not be happening. But I'll tell you what, you could look at there's two ways with this. Maybe he's looking to get them desperate, saying, well, we're not going to do anything, and they might just jump on a deal early, which I doubt they will because these guys usually get what they want because they know that they're the only game in town. And, it's just the American people, let's just put it this way, the American people are the ones who are going to pay in the end for all this, the illegal aliens and the violence, the murder, and the supply chain stopping. I mean, forget about having new cars and parts and stuff, guys, because this will jam up. I mean, ships will be backed up for miles out there in the West Coast, maybe even the East Coast. Who knows? But it's gonna be a mess. And if Joe was still running, he'd probably get it done. But I don't think Kamala has the mental capacity.
I don't think either of them do,
realize.
Pat. And you know what's an interesting point that you make? The first point that you made was the immunity. Yeah, they all have it. Cops and firefighters and members of Congress, as well as everybody working in government, basically has this qualified immunity where as long as they're doing what they do during the commission of their job, right? They're doing things related to their official act of whatever their capacity in office is. They're covered. You're not going to get sued for doing your job, even if you do it poorly. There's political prescriptions for that and remedies, like impeachment, elections, and other things that would hold people accountable for those types of mistakes. And that's why it's up to us, right? We, the people, what is donned at the top of the Constitution is ultimately what it's all about, the consent of the governed. Pat in Sedona, Arizona, thanks for your call, brother. And I think you're spot on and everything else. I don't know if Biden was going to get anything done. I think they're both a pair of failures. They've proven to be a pair of failures. And I think their base sees it. Their friends in the media see it. And the rest of the American public sees it too. Pat in Sedona, Arizona, thank you, brother. Always good to hear from you. Let me let's see. Let's go to Kevin in Webb City. Is that Missouri? KZRG. Go right ahead, Kevin.
Yes, hi. My name is Kevin. So I wanted to tell you that I wanted to talk about the J.D. Vance and Tim Walz debate and also the
tomorrow night
shutdown. Yes, I believe that J.D. Vance will win that debate. I think it will show the American people that he is a better candidate. And with this whole shutdown going on, I think it is a political stunt, I would say, because it's where that Joe Biden ain't going to help the union workers when it's literally near almost the election time. And literally it's happening right when this debate is happening. So I think it's just a little weird. Yeah,
well, I agree with you that it's being done with political expediency on behalf of the workers to try and pressure the union. What I think is a political miscalculation is the Democrats. I don't see a win for them here unless the idea is to make hype and say, oh, my gosh, we're about to have a strike. And maybe Joe and Kamala Harris decided to get together. And, by tomorrow night, right before the debate, they come out and say, you know what, because of the expert leadership of Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, we were able to avoid a shutdown, and we're going to make sure that you don't lose $25 billion a day. That's the type of leadership that you need. That's exactly why we're sending her back to the White House and blah, blah, blah. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't see it happening. It could. And again, if I were in charge, that's exactly what would happen. If she were my candidate, I'd be like, we're going to make this look good for her no matter what. We're going to show her leadership and her ability to take the bull by the horns here and make it happen, Captain. So I doubt that's going to happen. But, maybe somebody's listening and we'll get a good idea and we'll avoid that, because ultimately, if America wins, we all win, right? Either way, I don't think that's going to give them the edge on Trump. And I think you're right as far as the debate, which we'll be tapping into tomorrow, bringing it to you live as it's happening and giving you the best coverage and reaction and analysis following the debate in real time, live. I think you're right. I think when it comes to Tim Walz, he's going to use the same tired lines he's been using. Mind your damn business. If women want to get abortions, mind your damn business. Weapons of war. Right? He's just going to keep attacking Vance as being some sort of bad guy, some sort of gun-toting crazy that, wants to keep children alive and prevent women from having any type of right over their uterus. And I just don't think it's going to work to the way they're thinking it might work. But I could be wrong. We'll see. Kevin in Webb City, Missouri, thank you for the call, KZRG. And let's see. Where do we go from there? We go to a pause. We're going to go to a quick pause, and we're going to come right back to the rest of your calls in Idaho, Arkansas, Illinois, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
On another issue on the other side of the world in the Middle East, it's our understanding... I'm going to stick with this. What's that? I'm going to stick with this subject, but go ahead.
Well, it's just the fact that Israel may be now launching a limited operation into Lebanon. Are you aware of that? Are you comfortable with their plan?
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now.
All right, that is President Joe El Baboso Biden saying, look, I'm more aware than you might know about what's going on in the Middle East. It's pretty bad when that's your answer to a reporter, right, during a press gaggle, that, hey, listen, I know more than you think I know, okay? Thank you. It's a sad day, America. It's a very sad day. Anyway, let me see. Where do I want to go? Jason, Aurora, Illinois, WLS out of Chicago. Jason, go right ahead.
Rich, you got to stop me from laughing because that was the greatest comment I've heard of in a long time.
Thank you.
Why is it we have to tell Israel not to secure their border from Hamas and Hezbollah, but we can't even secure our own border?
Yeah, you're right, brother. You tell me. I don't know. This is what Joe El Baboso Biden and Kamala Harris, they specialize in breaking America and trying to break the rest of the world.
They're not coming in here to spread daisies and laugh with us and have flower parties. They're here to terrorize us, the same as Hamas did out there. We have American prisoners that have been there almost, well, within the next week would be a year. Yeah. And if Trump were in office, he would have put the foot down on them. And Biden doesn't do bejesus.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I think you're right, Jason. The whole thing is out of control. And we just like that clip we played of the guy earlier, that guy Serwer, if I'm saying his name right, Serwer, who was a guest on some TV show, but who was saying that, the media is portraying the problem wrong at the border. It's as if this Biden's saying that, they're portraying it wrong here and that we're getting it wrong. I guess there's another way of looking at it, that we should be concerned about everybody else's borders in Ukraine. We should be concerned about the borders in anywhere, right? In Gaza, but we can't be concerned about the borders in the United States. And this is, when Trump gave his famous escalator speech that they crucified him for, he said, they're not sending us their best, they're sending us their worst, they're sending us their rapists, their murderers. That's happening, right? I mean, we just had a report that proved that. This didn't even come out of the Trump administration, this report. It came out of the Biden administration. It just came out. What was it, Thursday night or Friday morning? And the fact that we have 650,000 convicted criminals that have we know that they have come into the country, right? Forget about the ones we don't know, the gotaways, because we don't know. These are the ones that we do know. I mean, that to me, I'm almost speechless, and I'm not even allowed to be speechless in this job, right? I'm always supposed to have something to say. I think it's crazy, Jason.
I will tell you, my son's in the National Guard. God bless him.
Amen.
God bless
Thank
all the
you
troops
for his
that stand
service.
on there on the border.
Yeah. We're in bad shape, brother. We're in very bad shape. Jason in Aurora, Illinois, WLS. Thanks for tuning in, brother, and thanks for your kind words. I appreciate it. Hope to chat with you again soon. Let me see. Let's go with John, Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas, listening on KSAR. John, go for it, my man.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The Democrats have definitely changed their spots. I'm born in 1969. I'm autistic, and the Democrats aren't the Democrats they used to be. I have a new catchphrase for you if you want to spread it around. Sure. I call them demo rats.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And the deeper meaning of that is a Democrat used to be democratic. They're not anymore. They, like I said, they've changed their spots. So the word demo rat means the word demo instead of democracy means destruction. Destruction of our economy, destruction of our Constitution, destruction of our freedoms. The rat is when you turn the lights on, they go scurrying all into the dark spots in your house, right?
Yeah.
So that's
right, it's like turning on the light and the cockroaches scurry everywhere.
Oh yeah, well it's like Kamala Harris. She runs because she can't support her beliefs. She has no beliefs, basically.
Not even with Oprah next to her, which I thought was so like wow. Like if you ever had a chance to shine with Oprah. Everybody loves Oprah. She couldn't even shine with Oprah by her side. John in Horseshoe Bend. John, tell me a little bit about Horseshoe Bend. Is there really a horseshoe there?
Oh no, yeah. Well, it's Horseshoe Bend. It was founded back in the 60s and 70s. People came from California and tried to make it like a Las Vegas, make it like a show place.
Nice.
Yeah, and it fell through. It was sort of like there was a place up in the desert in California. This guy tried to make this oasis out there that it never worked. So
never took root.
It's a nice place.
Outstanding. Well, John in Horseshoe Bend, thanks for it. There's a place in Jersey called Glen Rock, and I always wondered, why is it called Glen Rock? Well, guess what? There's a huge rock in the middle of the town. Huge rock. That's why they call it Glen Rock. Anyway, John in Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas, listening on KSAR, our great affiliate out there. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your call. And folks, we get to the rest of your calls and more. Idaho, Arkansas, Illinois, all of you guys are coming up. Plus the rest of your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. It's open phones across America with me, your host, until 1 a.m. We're live Eastern time, that is. I am Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So far, more than 3,300 federal personnel are on the ground to assist with recovery efforts. They are deploying food, water, and generators. And we continue to work with teams on the ground to restore water and power as quickly as possible. To everyone who has been impacted by this storm, and to all of those of you who are rightly feeling overwhelmed by the destruction and the loss, our nation is with you. And President Biden and I, and all of the folks behind me, are with you. We will continue to do everything we can to help you recover and to help you rebuild, no matter how long it takes. And I do believe the true character of a nation is revealed in moments of hardship. Over the past few days, our nation has endured some of the worst destruction and devastation that we have seen in quite some time. And we have responded with our best.
And that is Kamala Harris giving a speech there, responding with her best, saying everything is in place. The problem is, what's in place, right? This sounds like a lot of empty talk because El Trumpito is on the ground and he's bringing in all sorts of equipment, and he's bringing in tankers with gasoline and water and several tractor trailers today. And I have to say, he's doing more than the Biden administration is. He even said he was just on the phone with Elon Musk trying to get the Starlink communication system so that they can have some sort of internet or Wi-Fi. Listen to Trump in Valdosta, Georgia today at a press conference.
Homes, hospitals, highways, and cars have been plunged underwater. Entire neighborhoods have been turned into lakes. Nobody's seen anything like it. And to every family that's been displaced here in Georgia and North Carolina, which has really been hit. We were going there also, and they don't have communication. They don't have anything right now. We're trying to. I just spoke to Elon. I'm getting him. We want to get Starlink hooked up because they have no communication whatsoever. And Elon will always come through. We know that. And so we're working on that, getting them hooked up. They asked me whether or not that would be possible. We're going to try and get the Starlink in there as soon as possible because they have no communication. And throughout the region, our hearts are with you, and we are going to be with you as long as you need it.
There you go. El Trumpito, dueling messages. Which one of those messages do you believe? Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Paul, Boise, Idaho, KBFI. Paul, go for it.
Thank you, Rich Valdez, with an S. You played the tape that I heard on the news today when I was at work, and that's the one about the president. I hate to say that word for him, but Biden told basically Netanyahu to cease fire and to just quit. And I was thinking, I thought that's pretty rich for him to say that to another sovereign country who's in the middle of a war, and the guy's he's got some really serious health problems as far as his brain is concerned. And for him to say that, for even to let them say that on the air is pretty criminal in itself. This guy's got 7 fronts going on right now, Netanyahu. You think about that for a minute. You're almost firing on yourself in a circular firing squad by having that happen. And
guy's shooting himself in the foot.
Yeah, because you've got to go around in a circle and shoot people. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the way this guy's got to fight this. This is the last ditch effort on his part to save his people. Now, if you don't think that takes some cojones, I don't know who does have them. And I've, as far as I'm concerned, kudos goes to Netanyahu. That's who I am. I'm backing him all the way for whatever he needs me for.
I hear you on that one, brother. Listen, me too. I think Netanyahu's staying the course. He's doing what has to be done. I think El Trumpito's also staying the course, doing what has to be done. And I wish I could say, you know what? I would love to say, Joe Biden really, look, I disagreed with him throughout his tenure as president. I think he's un baboso. But I will say his response to this hurricane has been stellar. I can't say it, though. I just can't say it because it's not true, right? Because you're seeing all these stories and nobody's thanking the president right now, right? Nobody's saying, oh, you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for all the great work you're doing. That's not happening. And they should be ready for these things, especially this close to an election. And forgive me if I sound crass in saying that, but I come from New Jersey. It's a very political state, right? Municipal elections are in May and June. And guess what happens every April? Every street that needs to get paved gets paved. Every sidewalk, every crosswalk, anything with a crack in it, they fix everything around here. These politicians don't skip a beat. So you're going to tell me when you know it's September, it's hurricane season, right? Every September, you get Florida getting hit by a hurricane. Why are we not prepared with this to knock it out of the park, to really be there for people? And I understand they're saying devastating path. It hit so many states. I get it. Just be there. Be on the ground. You were criticized. Joe Biden, at least, was criticized for not being in East Palestine, Ohio, for not making it to Hawaii fast enough. The media, even the media was like, you haven't been there. Kamala Harris was criticized for not being at the border. We've been to the border. You haven't been to the border, right? Lester Holt told her that. Well, why not learn from your mistakes and actually show up and be there? But what are you going to say? What are you going to say, right? Anyway, thank you, my brother Paul. I appreciate it. I appreciate your kind words. God bless you, sir. And let's continue. I want to go to Bernardo calling us from Wichita, Kansas on KQAM. Go right ahead, brother.
Hey, Rich, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Go for it. All right, we lost Bernardo. Let's continue. Let's go to Tim, Marion, Illinois, WGGH. Let's try and get Bernardo back if we can. Something happened to his phone, I think. The deep state got him. Tim's in Marion, Illinois, WGGH. Go right ahead, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Rich. May God bless you. May Jesus bless you.
Amen. You too.
I'm from Southern Illinois, and I'm ashamed of being from Illinois because of the Chicago ran Pritzker and all that. We get dumped on and forgot about down here. We get we're all a bunch of country people. And I wouldn't want to go to Chicago for love nor money. And, we've tried to make our own state and it ain't ever going to happen. But,
yeah, I get it. You're not going to be able to make your own state, and you're ashamed. You know how many states there are like that, Tim? Let me tell you. There's a bunch. I live in one. In New Jersey, you've got these nice Republican enclaves, very conservative people, but then you've got these big towns like Newark, New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey, and a couple of others that kind of tip the scale. New York's a big state, and it's just New York City that tips the scale for it there. You got all of upstate New York and one big downstate city, New York City, a massive city, biggest city in America, right? It tips the scale. They do it in California as well. Reagan, won in California. It's not happening today, right? It could happen if you could get some of these cities to ease up a little bit. And it's the cities that are overwhelmingly, and they figured this out, and that's why they want what they call the popular vote. Because the way you actually win an election through the Electoral College doesn't work for them. Because all they know how to do is stack the deck. And stacking the deck isn't going to win you the Electoral College. That's exactly why we have an Electoral College. But they don't want to get into those conversations, Tim, because they go over some people's heads, right? They think that people are stupid. So they want to just give you some very simple, soft platitudes and tell you that Republicans are bad and that they're the good guys. And listen, I'm not buying it. And kudos to you for being ashamed to be from the same place as J.B. Pritzker. What a piece of work that guy is. Shout out to anybody and everybody listening on WGGH. God bless you, Tim. And let's see, where do we go? Well, we'll take a pause right here. We'll come back. Looks like we have somebody that disagrees on the line. We'll go to them first. And the rest of your calls are coming up. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So again, folks, who do you think is doing better with the Hurricane Trump, who's on the ground in hurricane-stricken Georgia, coming with without federal funding, but coming with a gas truck, right? A gas tanker so people could have gasoline and fuel for their generators, coming with pallets of water on several semi-trucks, coming with the relief ministry of Franklin Graham, the Samaritan's Purse organization, or Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Joe El Baboso Biden, who didn't even run this thing from Washington, were respectively campaigning and hanging out or whatever he was doing, and still haven't made their way to the disaster-stricken areas. You let me know. Let's go to John, Burlington, Vermont, on WVMT. John, go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, I find it abhorrent that you Republicans and Donald Trump in particular will try to make political hay out of a tragedy that's occurring in the Southeast. Governor Kemp in Georgia and President Biden were in communication right early after the hurricane hit Georgia. Yet the day after that, Donald Trump is going around telling his followers that Kemp and President Biden never spoke to Governor Kemp. A total lie, another lie. And, you talk about Donald Trump helping out with the hurricane. Some of us have a memory, and we remember 2017 when Puerto Rico was hit by Hurricane Maria. And you, as a Spanish American, should be really remembering that one.
I do. Let me tell you, I'll tell you what I remember. I remember that Donald Trump poured more financial resources into Puerto Rico than anybody else has in recent history. I remember that just like right now, he was on the ground handing out, even using his wicked jump shot, throwing bounty paper towels all over the place. And some in the media took exception to that, but most of the people that were there, Puerto Ricans like me, family members of mine, people that I know, people I've interviewed, people I've spoken to, they absolutely loved it. Even the rapper Anuel AA, he recently endorsed Trump at a rally, and he was the first one saying, "Look, we miss you. We need you. We need Trump back in the White House." So, I mean, it's clear that, prominent Puerto Ricans are standing up for Trump and grateful for what he did for the Commonwealth, for the island during his tenure. And with respect to your comments, look, I have also been critical of Democrats in the past for trying to politicize certain tragedies, namely those involving school shootings, right? Every time there's a school shooting, instead of making these targets more secure or harder target, what they end up doing is coming after legal, lawful gun owners and attacking the Second Amendment. Here, I don't see Trump doing anything. He's not going after the Constitution. He's going after his political opponent while helping people in the process. I don't consider that abhorrent, but you're welcome to that opinion, John.
Well, again, he lied about Governor Kemp and President Biden being in close communication. He shows up. It's a photo op, and Donald Trump.
Well, a photo op, I think, when you don't come with, if you just show up and take a picture, that's a photo op. This man came with several truckloads of equipment and supplies. I don't think we can say that's a photo op. He's leaving behind a tanker of gasoline. I don't know if you ever had to purchase one of those, but they're not cheap. So to suggest it's merely a photo op as if there was an empty promise, no, he actually brought stuff with him. So I can't agree with that one. As far as the Governor Kemp thing, I mean, honestly, that's a neither here nor there type of thing for me. I'm guessing Trump is talking about the time in which he had not yet spoken with him, whereas Biden is speaking in the time that he has, right? Kind of like when Kamala said, "We've been to the border," and Lester Holt said, "Well, you haven't been to the border." And she said, "Well, I haven't been to Europe," and they go back and forth with these things. Bottom line is, Trump is actually producing results, and Biden is just, a figment of many people's imaginations, while Kamala Harris is out there trying her best and not succeeding. John, thank you for your call. Burlington, Vermont, WVMT, and thank you for what you did in Puerto Rico as well. Let's go to Deborah, also calling from Burlington, Vermont, a neighbor of John's, if you will. Deborah, go right ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I guess John, wherever he is in this big city, little city, we disagree, certainly. If you give me a minute, I think something very special is happening with Trump and his compassion is transforming him into a natural and a great leader. And there's something really special, Rick, I think with him and Elon and many others, that there's this compassion that really leads in what he said today and the way he said it. That's not making political hay. That's really right from the heart.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, and I can tell you from several perspectives. One, Trump has always been that guy. He's always been that guy that when people needed it and no one would step up, he always stepped up for anything. The skating rink across the street from Trump, from the big Trump building uptown. The what's it called there? I forget. It's in Central Park. The big skating rink there. He did that, and he did it cheaper than the government would have done it. A parade that was going on that needed money to continue, he did that. The other day, I bumped into somebody, and I saw a video of this same conversation that he mentioned about Trump. His dad had died, and Fred Trump, Trump's dad, went and paid his a year's worth of his tuition at Catholic school because the dad worked with somebody who knew somebody, and they told him about this, and they were in the neighborhood, and he went to the same school as Donald Trump, and they came to his assistance. I mean, just there's a lot of stories of Trump really being very benevolent. And again, I think there's something to be said about the man and his character, but I think it's also it's when you have enough to be able to give some away, you do it, hopefully, right? One hopes that you do it. And that, again, is another testament to one's character and who they are as a person. Deborah in Burlington, Vermont, really well said. Thank you for your call, WVMT. Shout out to you guys. And we're coming right back with the rest of your calls from Illinois, Arkansas, Kansas, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, quickly, we're going to go to the speed round. I want to say, Joe in Salem, Arkansas, KSAR, what happens if the president-elect is assassinated? Well, what happens is the vice president-elect steps in. And thank you for that one, brother. I got to move on quickly here. Let's go to Chuck in Rockford, Illinois, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Your question is, you have some thoughts about the would-be Trump assassin. Go for it.
Have you ever heard of the Soldier of Fortune?
Sure.
Yeah, well,
Which one of these guys do you think it is? The one from Pennsylvania or the one from Florida?
Well, actually, a guy I went to school with. He did.
All right. I can't get into that right now. I just needed a kind of yes or no on that one, Chuck. Maybe we could do it tomorrow. Running out of time. Bernardo, Wichita, Kansas, KQAM. Go for it, my man.
Rich, I was going to call you because you named Trumpito Trump.
Yes,
and based on that name, Trumpito Trump, I had an idea of developing a logo that resembles Trump, un trompo. It's exactly like Trump, a spinning cord.
Well, you make a T-shirt and send us a picture. I can't wait to see it. Brother, thank you for the call. Folks, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. I'm Rich Valdez.